Hello, what's up, Guru Nation? How's it going, everybody? We are here today or tonight or whenever you're tuned in for the Guru Nation podcast, episode 6. Episode 6, which is going to be our guys and our boys. Basically, our love-hate list if we're going in Matthew Berry lingo. So, yeah, this is our the guys we would recommend drafting as well as the players that we'll say, hell no, stay away from them on draft day. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce or reintroduce our co-host Josh. What's up, bro?
What's going on, man? Spence, I am ready for this episode, man. I'm ready.
Yeah, man.
I like love hates.
Indeed, man. A long-awaited episode. This is one that y'all gonna want to strap in for because it's gonna be wild. Because the good thing with it though, like even if you've drafted already, like this list is all about value, and I've got my cheat sheet up here. Just ignore the little abbreviations there. That's why I take inventory for my leagues. I have a little abbreviation to make sure I'm not owning a player in too many leagues. Although Kyler Murray, I gotta say, I own a lot of shares of him this year. But anyway, yeah, we've got it here. These are my love hates. Obviously the green is who I would recommend drafting, and the red is who I'd recommend not drafting. And it's all about values, and that's what we're gonna break down because some people are probably looking and they might see Lamar Jackson, for example, and be like, why you hate Lamar Jackson? Lamar Jackson's a stud. He's a freaking 1,000-yard rusher as a quarterback, you know. But I mean, I have my reasons for avoiding Lamar this year, so let's get into it.
Yeah,
All right.
I think the best thing to just remember is that we're not saying that we hate these players. We're saying that we hate where they're being drafted, and there's a big difference when it comes to that. And we're gonna get into that as we go into each player. Now, there are some players that I just don't like, period. But there are some players that I just strictly hate where they're being drafted, as opposed to hating the player. Like we know they're gonna be fine, but where they're being drafted might be a little too high for our blood. So, just wanted to give that little disclaimer.
Yeah. So let's start from the top because I see here you got your Michael Thomas jersey on, and I've got to say I'm starting off with him as somebody I'm staying away from this season. I just feel like the yards and catches are going to come down. I mean, with Emmanuel Sanders there now, the Saints, I mean, Drew Brees ideally prefers to spread the ball around. It was just last year they really had nobody else there. It was basically the Mike Thomas show, and then a few guys here and there would come in. But for the most part, it was just Thomas. But this year with Sanders there, it's not going to be the exclusive Michael Thomas show. Granted, I mean, hey, he's still number one in my receiver rankings. I think he's going to do really well this year. However, if you have to pay, which a lot of times you have to, the 5th, 6th, 7th overall pick in the middle of the first round, I'm staying away because I'd rather go ahead and get my running back locked in, preferably Josh Jacobs in that spot. I've had a couple leagues already where I've passed up on Thomas in favor of Jacobs because I just feel like Jacobs is going to break out this year. And being that he's a running back, the position is just, there's not much there as far as workhorses. And I feel like Jacobs is the next workhorse in the making. So what about you, Josh? Are you avoiding Thomas, or do you feel like that first round price tag is all good?
No, I'm definitely avoiding him. Michael Thomas is the premier example of someone that I only hate because of where he's being drafted. Obviously, he's going to be a for sure top 5 wide receiver. He's probably still going to be a for sure top 3 wide receiver. I don't know if I believe that he'll be the number 1 wide receiver again this year, but I mean, if you're going to put your money on anybody, it's going to be Michael Thomas, right? But no, I don't want to spend a first round pick on Michael Thomas. Just every single time that I use my first pick on a wide receiver, whether it's Michael Thomas, whether it's at the end of the first round and it's Devontae Adams or D-Hop or Julio, whatever, it never fails. I don't like my running backs.
Yeah.
And I am just not going to be comfortable with my team if I don't like my running backs. So I'm not okay with picking a wide receiver in the first round, even though it is Michael Thomas. But, people fell in love with him so much last year because he was by far the number 1 wide receiver. And that's fine, but you have to remember, it's the same thing with Lamar Jackson. You didn't draft him top 5 last year. You didn't draft him top 7, right? You were drafting Michael Thomas. Some people might maybe draft him beginning of second round. A lot of people were drafting him at the end of the second round going into the beginning of the third round, all right? You got a huge return in value from picking him there. You might not get that same value this year because not only is he possibly going to regress just because he had a stupid year last year, but like you said, They got Emmanuel Sanders now, who I think is going to absolutely take away some targets from Michael Thomas. We already know Drew Brees and Jared Cook has a good connection. We saw it at the end of last year. I think that's absolutely going to continue going into this year. And I think there's a healthy Alvin Kamara that's going to start taking away a lot of targets yet again, just like he used to, out of that backfield. So I absolutely see a regression coming from Michael Thomas. Again, I still think he's going to be a top 5, possibly top 3 wide receiver. So I'm not saying he's going to be horrible. What I'm saying is I would rather not put my running backs in jeopardy just to go out and get a wide receiver.
I got you. Yeah, and a lot of times, I mean, hey, see, I'm an overall rankings here. I mean, I'm not as down on him as some. I have him here at 7 because I mean, Jacobs though to me is in every draft when I have a mid-round pick, I usually always target Jacobs over Thomas, and he's usually always there. But I know you guys are saying you don't want any part of Thomas even here. Who would you go over? Would you go Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Nick
in a
Chubb,
heartbeat?
Joe
I'm
Mixon?
going looking at this list right here. In a heartbeat, I'm not even hesitating. I'm going Austin Eckler before I go Michael Thomas. I'm going Joe Mixon before I go Michael Thomas. I'm possibly going Nick Chubb before Michael Thomas. I would definitely think about Clyde Edwards and, of course, Derrick Henry. I'm thinking about taking all those guys over of course, Aaron Jones. I think you have Aaron Jones criminally too low. But I would easily take Aaron Jones over Michael Thomas as well. All of those guys are going to solidify my running back 1. Whereas if I take Michael Thomas, by the time it gets back to me, then I'm looking at maybe a Kenyon Drake, or now I got to get a Miles Sanders or something like that as my running back.
Yeah, I know,
I'm not
right?
comfortable with that as my running back.
Yeah, and I feel that because Thomas, for a while, I had him up here with Kamara and Cook, but his offseason's going on. I've dropped him down some, and I might have to drop him down even more. Because I 100% feel what you're saying. The regression's coming, and yeah, if you take him first round, you're setting yourself back at the running back position. So yeah, I might have to move him down here even more. But another guy, though, I don't really care for is Derrick Henry, especially in PPR, because I feel like Henry's due for regression in the touchdowns department. I still think he'll run for a lot of yards, but if he's not scoring as much, which I don't think he will, I mean, he's kind of due for. I mean, it's like the Aaron Jones thing. Except, I mean, Henry, I mean, the Titans, I mean, they're a decent offense, but it's like, is he really going to score was it 18 or 19 touchdowns he got last year? I don't think. I mean, I think he'll still get the double digits, but if he's not getting those massive amounts of touchdowns, and then, of course, he doesn't really catch much, I mean, I still have him here because I feel like he's a very safe, durable workhorse that, like, it's the same thing with Michael Thomas. I feel like Henry and Thomas are both, like, safe first-round picks because they're very durable, but as far as them being able to, like, really parlay and get into, like, that wow factor, I feel like they hit that wow factor last year. I don't think they're going to repeat and wow you this year. I mean, if you want just a safe bet with those two, go ahead, but I'm more, man, I mean, obviously I preach first round, or you don't want to take too big of a risk, but I feel like, though, Jacobs and Eckler, these are both the guys I really like this year. I feel like Josh Jacobs and Austin Eckler are both, they're on the rise, and I don't think they've really hit their peak yet. I feel like their best is yet to come, whereas Derrick Henry and Michael Thomas, maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe they'll do even better this year, but I just don't quite see that happening, in which case, I mean, I'm definitely taking Jacobs over them. And at this point, maybe even Eckler, like, because I really like Eckler this year. I feel like he's going to be the focal point of the Chargers' offense. It's a little concerning, the fact that their offense, isn't that great with Tyrod Taylor and potentially Justin Herbert later on. But it should still be okay enough for Eckler to thrive, I feel like.
Yeah, so I'll actually transition that into my love list because the top 2 guys on my love list are Austin Eckler and Aaron Jones. And the reason why is because they're not being taken to the end of the first round, some at the beginning of second round. I think that's just absolutely crazy because we'll start with Austin Eckler. So Austin Eckler, I'll go off of what you were just saying. Austin Eckler was the number 1 runner, not the number 2, not the number 3. He was the number 1 running back last year before Melvin Gordon came back. That means he was higher.
Over CMC?
He was absolutely higher than CMC. I
Wow.
promise you on everything because I remember looking, because I had him in 2 leagues last year, and I remember being surprised myself. Like, I knew he was killing it, but I didn't know he was killing it that much. But he was the number 1 running back in PPR leagues until Melvin Gordon came back. And then it's not like he disappeared. The guy still finished as the number 3 running back in PPR while completely sharing the backfield. And I know pretty much all teams nowadays share the backfield, but you're talking about a guy that had Melvin Gordon, who's a bona fide number 1 running back, And he still finished as the number 3 running back because he's that explosive. He's that much of a playmaker. The reason why I'm not that scared, with them losing Phillip Rivers is that it's not like the plays they designed for him were down the field plays. The plays they designed for him were either in the backfield or maybe up to 5 yards, and they just put the ball in his hands and they trust him to go make a play. And that's exactly what he did time and time and time again. And last year was not the first time he's done that. He did it the year before. It wasn't as explosive, but he's shown that he can do it. And he's shown that I believe he's going to continue to do that without Melvin Gordon. I believe he's going to continue to do that without Phillip Rivers. I'm all in on Austin Eckler. I'm perfectly fine with anybody taking him as a top 6, top 7 pick because I think he's that good. Moving on to Aaron Jones, we've talked about this before. I don't get the all of a sudden hate for Aaron Jones. Like, I get that the touchdowns are going to go down. 100% they're going to go down. Of course they're going to go down. But are they going to go down enough to where this guy should be drafted as an RB2? No, it's crazy. Like, he gets pretty much close to the same volume as a guy like Derrick Henry does, except he catches the ball out the backfield. So you're telling me a guy that's maybe not as big and not as strong, but more explosive than Derrick Henry, that gets around the same volume as Derrick Henry, but can also catch balls out of the backfield and does have a knack for the end zone because 2 years ago, he also, I don't remember exactly how many, I don't have the stats in front of me exactly how many touchdowns he had, but he had a good bit of touchdowns 2 years ago, and then last year, of course, he exploded. The touchdowns are going to come down. He's still going to have a big workload. He's still going to catch balls out of the backfield. He is still going to be a running back 1. And for him, even more, I love where he's being drafted because you can get him as a running back 2. And I think that's just an absolute steal, and that's a great way to start your draft if you can get a bona fide number 1 and get him as your number 2. Boom.
For sure, yeah, this is my concern though with Aaron Jones I wouldn't mind him as an RB2 because I feel like he's going to produce well a lot of the season. But the only concern I have about him, or Derrick Henry, Henry's on my hate list, but the fact is Henry is that guy, there's no doubt. Like, he's proven himself. They paid him his contract. Like, he's going to be that guy for the full season. Where Aaron Jones, though, they basically drafted his replacement this year in A.J. Dillon, did not give him that contract extension. And so that's, to me, a sign that they don't believe in him long term. And so if he would have some bumps in the road, let's say he has a game where he fumbles 2 or 3 times, I don't know. I feel like there's a chance LaFleur might be like, well, let's get the future in there. Let's roll with AJ.
I think
that's the only concern I have about Aaron Jones is if he slips up if he has a couple slip up games, he might not even be in the starting conversation, much less the RB1 conversation.
I think what we're seeing is a classic episode of a coach that knows that you don't pay your running backs big money. Mm-hmm. And so they went out and they drafted a guy, and they're going to use him until the wheels fall off, and then they're going to let him go.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I don't think that this year it's going to affect him. Now, next year at this time, we might be having a different story.
He's a free agent, so he might be on a different team.
I might be talking completely different about him, but for this year alone, I'm perfectly fine. I think he's going to run him until the wheels fall off. It's the same thing with Mark Ingram. I think they're going to run them both until the wheels fall off. They're going to let them go do their thing because they know that they have their replacements. But for this year, both of those guys are still going to get a big workload.
For sure. Yeah, Ingram's up there, though, in age. I'm definitely more concerned about him than Jones.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, we'll probably get to him later on because I believe J.K. Dobbins is on my love list. But let's continue to the running back run here. Got a group of 4 here. Down on Miles Sanders and Todd Gurley. But I'm feeling Melvin Gordon and Chris Carson. All right, I'll give my reasoning real quick, and then if you have any that you like that, and feel free. The reasons Miles and Todd Gurley are on this list for me. Miles Sanders, I just don't trust him to be the workhorse. And a lot of times he's being drafted as a first, second round pick. And if you draft somebody that high, you expect him to be able to carry the load. And he's unproven. I don't really care for him. Kenyon Drake, I kind of feel the same about. The only thing with Kenyon Drake, I feel like, being that he's on a 1-year deal, like he's got something to prove. And he's in the Kingsbury offense, so assuming he can stay healthy, I think he'll do pretty well. Sanders, the Eagles' offense isn't looking too good right now. Carson Wentz banged up as usual. Jalen Reagor's out. That could end up, he might end up facing some stacked boxes there in Philly, and I don't know, y'all. I'm not really feeling Miles this year. I feel like he's has already been banged up in training camp. And it's just Doug Peterson's notorious for using committee backfield. So I just don't have a good gut feeling about him. Would not invest an early pick on him. And then Todd Gurley, it's simple to me. The arthritis in his knees. I just can't trust it. The reason I even have him this high is because I feel like he'll start off well, and I've been telling people this all off season. If you draft Todd Gurley, ride the hot hand while it's rolling. He'll probably be hot to start. Have a first 5-6 weeks, he'll probably be an RB1. But guess what? After that, trade him because I feel like once that run ends, the wheels will fall off due to that arthritic knee or knees. I'm not really sure there, but it's definitely a concern. I own no shares of him. And then Melvin Gordon and Chris Carson, though I know they have their injury concerns. However, nothing I believe to be nothing really like degenerative like Gurley's. Like he's like the breaking down the knee. I mean, I know Carson had a hip injury and Melvin Gordon's had plenty of nicks and bruises over the years. But I feel like they're both guys like they're both tough runners. Like they're tough. Like they're gonna push through it. And they're on good offenses, especially Carson. It's just, yeah, that hip was a pretty major injury there. But I think he'll come back and be a solid RB2. And then Gordon, I know it's going to be old altitude, Phillip Lindsay, but I'm not really worried about that stuff. I mean, Gordon had to play. He was in that division. He's played in Denver before in the altitude. And then Lindsay, I just don't feel like is that talented to really eat into his workload. So those are guys I'd feel really confident about as RB2s. Gordon and Carson. I'd fade Gurley and then don't really have James Conner and David Johnson on my hate list per se, but they're not really guys I'd be targeting if Gordon and Carson are there.
Yeah, so I actually agree with all four of those. I don't necessarily have Miles Sanders in my hate list. He's kind of more in that like don't really like, so I'm not gonna draft him list. Mainly because so here's the deal. I do think he's being overdrafted. I think he's one of those guys, like you said, where Todd Gurley, you can ride him to the wheels fall off and trade him. I think Miles Sanders is actually one of those guys you should look to trade him for. But I think second half of the season, if you monitor it correctly and you see that their offense is kind of playing well, you see that he's kind of staying on the field and that Carson Wentz is also staying on the field because I think that also has a factor in Miles Sanders' value, then I think possibly you could trade for him mid-season if he's not having a great, half of the year. And then he's someone that could blow up second half of the year. And then Todd Gurley, I completely agree. Staying away from that. He's too injury prone. I don't even know if I'd want to even have him for the first 6 weeks. I'd rather someone else have that headache, honestly. I'm just not okay with it. He's being drafted as an RB2. I don't like that. I'm staying away from that completely. I am totally all in with Melvin Gordon and Chris Carson. More so Melvin Gordon, basically because you can draft him later. You can basically get him as a flex in the 4th round. And I love that because I just think he's really good at football. He's just a really good running back. He's a really good football player. And he's going into a offense that we know is going to be able to pass the ball a lot, so they're not going to be able to focus a lot on the run. And then when it comes to Phillip Lindsay, I do worry a little bit more about Phillip Lindsay than you do, mainly because he's a good story. So I believe that they're going to allow him the opportunity to continue to have his share in the backfield. But I think we've learned with Melvin Gordon sharing the backfield with Austin Eckler and still getting his points, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's sharing the backfield. He's still going to get his points because he's Melvin Gordon, and Melvin Gordon's a really good running back. So I absolutely love where he's being drafted. I will take him as a flex 10 times out of 10. He's pretty much, I think I'm in 11 leagues. I'm pretty sure he's my flex in about 10 of them. Because I'm going to take him there every single time if I can.
Lots of Melvin shares. And the thing is, I have a few Melvin Gordon shares that in the Fantasy Throne League. I have that. I mean, it's just, I like him, but the reason I play in leagues with my buddy Clock Management. Shout out to him. Y'all go subscribe to the Clock Management channel if you haven't already. But he loves Melvin Gordon. Like, as much as you love him, Josh, he probably loves him more than you. He takes him sometimes in the 2nd round.
No, I'm not going to do that.
And I'm like, I can't quite do that. So in any leagues I'm in with him, I don't own any shares of Gordon. But, I mean, I don't play every league with him. So the ones like the Throne League got him there in the 3rd, 4th round. So, yeah, I'm okay with that. So let's shift gears a little bit to receivers that usually go around this range.
Can I talk about one more running back that I love? Just one more. Just because I'm not going to take long on it. I just wanted to make sure his name gets put in there. Kareem Hunt.
Okay, guys, I was like, we were going to get to him. He's
Kareem, why do you have him as a love? I want to make sure I have him as a love. So you kind of have him as neutral.
Okay, I mean, we can keep on with running backs. But
I just wanted to make sure I threw his name out there just because he's just someone I'm loving this season. I love where he's being drafted. I think he's going to way outplay his ADP. And then, of course, if these, like I said on one of our last episodes, if the concussions continue with Nick Chubb, which I hope they don't because I think Nick Chubb is outstanding. I love watching him play. But if they do, Kareem Hunt's going to be an RB1. So I love where he's being drafted. I take him in almost every league that I possibly can where he's being drafted at. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I threw his name out in my love list. Anyways.
Okay, yeah, so let's just keep it running. We don't want to keep jumping around and
Okay.
all that. We'll just go with running backs. And so I say DeAndre Swift, I had taken him off my love list a little while ago, but I put him back because he's cleared now, y'all. He's cleared. He's back at practice. And I was worried that he might miss week 1 and be really behind the 8 ball. But now that he's back, I think he'll be good to go around week 2 or 3 to be their starter because Carry-On I have buried on this list. I don't trust him at all to be sustainable. He might have a couple okay weeks to start, but he's not going to be anything special. Or DeAndre Swift, once he gets the workload, he's going to take off, and I feel like he's at a really good price tag right now because all these guys below him, I would draft him over all these guys, but generally in ADP, these guys all go before him. And I would take him any day, especially over Cam Akers, who a lot of people are riding his hot hand because of the fact that Sean McVay is basically handing the keys to him because they really don't have anything else there. I just don't really know if I trust that. I don't really. It's kind of like the Miles Sanders thing. I don't really trust it. Although he goes at a decent price in drafts, so he's not on my hate list. So let's address the ones that are, and that's Le'Veon Bell, Devin Singletary, and Raheem Mostert. And the reason Bell is I've been hammering this point on all season. Anyone that keeps up with my content knows Lev Bell, I believe, is overrated, vastly overrated, should not be drafted unless he would fall to like the 5th or 6th round, which he never does because there's always that one sucker that believes he's gonna get back to his Pittsburgh years, and that's just not gonna happen. I feel like Bell is somebody to just stay away from. He's getting up in age. He's not very efficient. The Jets stink. He's not gonna have many scoring opportunities. He'll get some garbage time catches, so he's not a total fade in PPR. So, I mean, he's on my avoid list, but if he would slip to the price of, say, 5th or 6th round, don't be, like, scared to take him, but he never does, so I don't think you'll have to worry about that. So I'd pretty much just say scratch him off your board. And then Devin Singletary was somebody I was somewhat high on, but the more the offseason goes, the more negative reports come out about him. The latest report is now he's been having fumbling problems, and then it's basically going to be a 50-50 split between him and Zach Moss. They're going to go with the hot hand. And so all the reports are just indicating that Singletary, and I was a little nervous about Singletary earlier in the offseason. I had like a gut feel, and I was telling me, yeah, don't go all in on Singletary. Yeah, he's got intriguing ability in a run-first offense, but he's just not someone that you should invest in. And the same thing with Raheem Mostert. He's on a run-first offense, but just too many mouths to feed there. And I feel like these guys they're going to end up disappointing you because they're guys, they'll have their moments, but they're not going to be consistent to sustain that and be week-to-week starters.
Yeah, so I agree with most of your points. I don't know if I would take DeAndre Swift over Kareem Hunt necessarily, and I'm not 100. Well, in fact,
I need to address your Kareem Hunt thing because you're really high on Kareem Hunt. And I'm kind of like, I feel like he could be good and be a really good PPR value. The only thing is with Chubb, unless something happens to Chubb, I just feel like Hunt is just going to be one of those just kind of type players. He's basically, I mean, he's better than James White, but like it's just not a whole lot of upside there with being stuck behind Chubb. He's a very safe pick that could parlay into something more if Chubb would get injured, but Chubb looks to be pretty durable and he commands a big share of the carries, and so because of that, I'm honestly not really feeling Hunt as anything more than he could be an RB2, but I wouldn't really feel comfortable with him there. I'd probably say flex.
See, I think it all depends on how you look at him, because you made a point just now where you said you feel like he's behind Nick Chubb. I don't even look at him as being behind Nick Chubb. I kind of view him the same way that I viewed Austin Eckler last year. I don't think they're necessarily behind those running backs. I feel like they're on the side of them in their own specific role.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so Kareem Hunt, we know is going to be the pass catcher. Nick Chubb does not catch that many balls. Kareem Hunt is going to be the pass catcher out of the backfield, and Kareem Hunt has already been. They say he's been working with wide receivers. He's been working out of the slot. So it's just like Austin Eckler, where I don't think they're behind these guys. I think they have their own role, and I think they're both very good in those roles, and they're both guys that if they're top guys, those guys they're on the side of, if they go out, then yeah, they shoot up in value, which is why I love Austin Eckler without Melvin Gordon. But that's how I view Kareem Hunt with Nick Chubb is He has his own role, but then if Nick Chubb goes down, now he has his role, and he'll have Nick Chubb's role, and that of course is going to shoot him up. So that's kind of why I view him and love him the way that I do. Um, and going to Raheem Mostert, I want to talk about him real quick because a lot of people are drafting him fairly high, and I get it. I do think he's going to have some really big games this year. The thing that I worry about with him is the same reason why I don't draft Tevin Coleman, even though Tevin Coleman's going later. So in my opinion, you get better value out of Tevin Coleman. I feel like it's just going to be a nightmare all year where one game, one of them's going to get 25, the other one's going to get 5, and the next game is going to flip. And it's going to be one of those things where you have them on your bench when they get the 25, and you'd be like, all right, well, then I'm going to start him next week. And then the next week,
yeah, but it never works. 5. It never works.
It never works. And I feel like it's just going to be a nightmare and a headache all year long. And it's just something I agree I don't want any part of with either one of them, even the one that you can get later on, because it's going to be the same thing. So I don't want to have to make that decision every week. I'd rather a guy that I can just plug in, even if he scores 11 points consistently, like a James White. I'd rather that because at least I know what I'm going to get from James White instead of having to worry about getting a big game.
Yeah, I have White over Mostert. Yep,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so let's see here. Yes, a few more. I mean, because we could go deep on this list. So if those of y'all watching that want to take a look, it is pretty deep here. But we're not going to go this deep because we got to get to receivers and QBs and tight ends. We would be here all night. But but yeah, I guess we'll address a few more and then we'll move on to receivers. J.K. Dobbins and Zach Moss are a couple of rookies that I'm really high on. That I feel like, look, if you draft them there in the middle rounds and you have to stash them on your bench, cool. Because guess what? By the second half of the year, these guys could be RB1s. Like, they have that kind of upside because they're both in really good situations. Baltimore is run heavy. Buffalo is run heavy. Like, they're both run heavy offenses. And so Singletary is just, to me, not that much of a threat. Mark Ingram's on his last leg. So, I mean, these two guys, I feel like Moss is actually a better value because Dobbins, everyone knows how talented Dobbins is. A lot of times he'll get overdrafted, but not necessarily though. More like in experts drafts and like your general home leagues, like he generally is a good value. Where Moss, even in experts drafts, a lot of times, I mean, they only own one share of Moss. I wish I owned more. Now that I look back on it, because he was an absolute steal. But I was back when I was more on the Singletary train. But now that I'm off the Singletary train, I wish I had more Zach Moss shares because he is. I think could really blow up there in the Bills offense. And then Sony Michel is someone I'm avoiding, and carry on Marlon Mack. Pretty much all of these. I didn't feel like highlighting them all, but this is a group. And then Raquel Armstead is getting some hype after the Fournette trade, but I mean he's tested positive for COVID again, so he's probably gonna be out the rotation. So yeah, this group right here is kind of an avoid group for me. If you're gonna try and get your 4 running backs here, and then if you get an RB, try to take somebody with an RB5 with more upside, like an A.J. Dillon or a Josh Kelly or even this guy, Divine Ozigbo. Because, I mean, with the Armstead out, he could do something. I'd rather wait for RB5 than just, to me, you're kind of wasting a pick by on a Michelle or a carry-on. Because it's like, yeah, they might have a few good games, but overall they're gonna end up injured and not worth it.
Right.
And anyone else you'd like to throw in here before we move on to receivers?
I have Matt Breida on my really like list, not so much my love. You can get him really late. He's a guy that could pop, and he could. You're gonna have Jordan Howard taking away the goal line carries most likely, which is gonna suck. But Matt Breida is a guy that can give you big plays, and then of course if Jordan Howard goes down, now he gets goal line carries as well. So he's a guy that could absolutely pop, and you're getting him super late in drafts. So that's kind of why I really like him. He'd probably be the last guy that I...
There you go. Yeah, let's say I like him too, not as someone I'm all in with, but somebody that's a solid depth piece. And so let's do it here. Receivers, we addressed Mike Thomas earlier, so then we'll go with the like Kenny Golladay, DJ Moore are guys I really like, and then AJ Brown and Calvin Ridley after them. Like, if I'm in a league, like, this is my ideal, like, start to receivers. I go running back, and then hope I can get Golladay and Brown or get Moore and Ridley type thing, just because I feel really good about these 4. I feel like they're all guys that are trending upward. They're all guys that have yet to reach their peak. And I feel like for these two, I think they could have career years, Golladay and DJ Moore. And Brown and Ridley, I think could definitely take some strides in their game. So that's why I'm really feeling this group right here. I feel like if you and assuming because I usually like to go running back early, get the running back secured because and then I target these guys because I feel like these guys up here they've already hit their ceiling and these are all good guys. But they're not gonna really do much better. Like you're having to pay for them. Where these guys you're paying later value and they could easily be just as good as these guys.
Yeah. I agree with pretty much all those guys. I don't love AJ Brown. I think you know why. We talked about it before. I don't like the offense he's in. I'm not a big fan of his quarterback. I think he'll be fine. Like I'm actually growing on him a little bit more as the offseason comes and as the season gets closer. So I don't hate him. I do like him, but I don't like paying the price. I'd rather have him as my flex, and you can't get him as your flex anymore because now he's being drafted as a high-end wide receiver too, and I just don't really want to pay that kind of price for him. So yeah, Calvin Ridley, I love. I love where he's going. DJ Moore, Kenny G. Kenny G's my boy. Kenny G is somebody that could possibly push for wide receiver one this year. Just if Matt Stafford can stay on the field all year, he could push for wide receiver one this year. That's the kind of value you can get from that guy. And like you said, you get him in the third round when you already have your two really good running backs. Now you can get a Kenny G. I think that's great. I also like Cortland Sutton. So you have Cortland Sutton as a love. I like him. I don't love him mainly because I do think that Jerry Jeudy is, especially by the end of the season, Jerry Jeudy is going to be taking away a lot of targets from him because he's that good, he's that talented. And then, of course, Noah Fant continues to rise as a young stud in this league. So he's going to take away targets as well. But I think Cortland Sutton's going to be he's going to be okay. He's going to be hopefully consistent. He wasn't too consistent with Drew Lock at the end of the year last year when he took over. But they're going to have a whole offseason together. I assume they're going to be a little bit better than that small sample size that we saw. So I'm okay with drafting him as a wide receiver too.
Indeed, yeah. I really like that. A lot of times you can get him as a flex, like AJ
Yeah,
Brown.
and I'm fine with that. Yeah,
You can't always get as a flex anymore, or never in 12-man leagues. But Cortland Sutton, I've gotten as a flex before. Now a lot of times WR too in competitive leagues, but shallower leagues, like you can get him as a flex and feel really good about it. So let's get into some guys that I'm not really feeling, and that's Amari Cooper, Adam Thielen. And your boy, Josh, Odell Beckham. I know you're going to disagree with me here because you prefer Odell over A.J. Brown. But I actually drafted Odell in a league last week, but I didn't feel good about it. After this, like, damn it, why'd I do that? Because they had taken all my guys, like, Ridley, Brown, and the one, Sutton, and then I ended up stuck with Odell. So that's just saying that's the point I have to make. Don't totally scratch him off your board. Odell's on my hate list, but he fell to me I think it was like the 5th or 6th round, so I couldn't pass up on that. It was a steal, I felt like, but the thing is, I didn't feel that good about it though because I think Odell is going to be very shaky this year. I think all these guys are going to be very shaky. Cooper, I just feel like he's a pendulum. And then with CD Lamb there, that does not help matters. Cooper is somebody I'd rather just stay away from. Avoid that headache.
Yep.
Thielen, I just feel like Minnesota's real conservative. And I just don't really trust him there with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. I know he's Thielen's another one. I think Thielen will do well to start the year. I would say Thielen, kind of like Todd Gurley. They have both ranked 17, both on my hate list. I'd say the reason being, I don't think they'll start off bad, but I think they'll both really struggle in the second half. And so I would say trade them. I'm not as down on Thielen as Gurley, but I don't really. A lot of times with Thielen will go in the 3rd round. It's more of a value thing for me. If Thielen's there in the 4th or 5th, I don't hate him as much as Odell. But to me, 3rd round is just way too high for Adam Thielen. Because last year, I know he was playing Hurts, but he was dreadful for a lot of last season.
Yeah, so I agree with Amari Cooper. I think the thing with Amari Cooper that's always made him valuable is that for the first half of the year, he's been so good that he can get you into the playoffs. The problem is when you get into the playoffs,
you don't know what
he sucks. And I don't even think you're going to get that this year. I think you're going to get a lot of inconsistency. I think you're going to get a 30-point game and you're going to get a 10-point game. I think he's just going to drive fantasy owners crazy. I think everyone in that offense is going to drive fantasy owners crazy except Dak. Dak has a literal candy store. I still kind of am worried about Zeke. I don't like what I saw last year, and I think it's going to continue trending that way, where they're just kind of not only taking him out of the offense, but they're not even putting him in a position to be successful. And that's what I don't like. They're basically saying, this is the feel I get from them. They're basically saying, here, Zeke, just take it and go do what you got to do. I don't like that. Don't just give him the ball up the middle 3 times in a row and expect him to get 30 yards, right? The thing that made Zeke so amazing was that they were able to put him in positions to be successful, and then when they did that, he showed his talent. But you can't just give any running back the ball up the middle and just expect him to do something. That's what they were doing last year, and that's why he had a bad fantasy year when it comes to his standards. And I don't really think it's going to get any better. They have a young offensive coordinator that was a former quarterback that has a quarterback with a ton of wide receivers and threats to throw to. They're going to keep throwing the ball. So
So Zeke's on the hate list?
it's not that he's on my hate list. I'm just not drafting him at number 4.
Like so that kind of would be, yeah. But anyway, yeah, we don't want to get too off track here.
So,
but yeah,
so basically, yeah, I don't like Amari Cooper for that reason because I feel like all the wide receivers in that system are going to kind of be the same. I don't think any of them are going to really be consistent. I think they're each going to have their good games. There's going to be weeks where 2 of them have really good games. I just don't really want to have to worry again about putting guys in my lineup that might score 4 points when they also might score 30. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not really a big fan of that. So I agree with that. I disagree with Thielen and Odell, and here's why. So Adam Thielen, I think, is going to be Adam Thielen. I think if he's healthy, he's going to be consistent. If you're factoring injury in there, sure, that's fine. But I think if you're getting him in the 4th, 5th round, you're getting a guy that you know that when he's on the field, he's going to put up points for you. Odell Beckham, I don't love him anymore because he's being jumped up on the boards. He used to be able to get him in the 6th round at the beginning of the summer. Now he's getting picked towards the 4th, early 5th. I still like him there. I don't necessarily love him, but I definitely don't hate him. I think Odell is still an amazing talent, an amazing wide receiver. I do think that Baker will step up this year because I think if he doesn't, he's gone, and I think he knows that. So, from what I heard, all reports I'm hearing is that he's doing well right now, and Baker is super serious, and it's all business. So I like to hear that. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say that if he can come out playing ball, Odell is definitely going to benefit from it, and we're going to see some old shades of Odell. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver. I do think he's going to push to be a top 10 wide receiver. And so if you're getting him in the 4th, 5th round, I still think that's good value. It's not as great value as it was in the 6th, but it's still good value. So I'm definitely not putting him on my hate list. But I'm not putting him on my love anymore. He's in that middle range where I like him.
I gotcha. Yeah, Thielen, I could kind of get a little more on his bandwagon. But yeah, Odell, I actually flipped him. I had Odell higher, but Odell, I just can't go to injury concerns too for Odell. Even if Baker is, like you said, all business, Odell could easily get injured. But overall, though, I've kind of liked the Cooper's the one I've moved down even more than them because Cooper, I'd stay away from all these guys. But they don't totally cross them off. And in this group right here, I feel like it's all kind of they're pretty good values. They're not like great options. DK Metcalf could really blow up. I've moved him up some. Yep. And the DJ Chark I like because Chark's the only guy in that offense really. I mean, well, they've got other guys. I shouldn't have said that. They got other guys, but he's really the only proven guy that really showed out that he could be 1,000-yard receiver. They got Laviska Shenault too, and they've got a DD and Chris Conley, but they're nothing special. I mean, and then with Fournette going, it kind of frees up looks in a way. So, I'm good with Chark, and then DK could pop off, and then Tyler Boyd's somebody I really like. Tyler Boyd, I feel like is just a very safe WR3 with upside for more, Yep. To me, he gets disrespected a lot of times in fantasy because he's not a flashy, real big play receiver, but he gets it done consistently. He's had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, and with Joe Burrow there now, I think he could really take that next step, and he could possibly... I might be a little low on him. He could maybe be a top 20 receiver when it's all said and done.
If you're keeping up with the Bengals offseason, which I totally understand if you wouldn't be, who would want to be? But if you are keeping up and listening, Joe Burrow and Tyler Boyd already have a really good connection with each other. Tyler Boyd is absolutely going to be a wide receiver 2 this year. And look, I'm going to say a bold statement right now. He could push to be a low-end wide receiver 1 by the end of the year. They have that kind of connection right now. And if it flourishes and gets better throughout the season, those guys are going to be unstoppable, especially if A.J. Green stays on the field. I think if A.J. Green stays on the field, that's going to continue to help Tyler Boyd because he's going to pull double teams over there. Tyler Boyd's going to be one-on-one with a second-string cornerback. I mean, that's all day. You can't with Joe Burrow throwing the football. That's all day. He's going to rack up points this year, and where he's being drafted at, he is an absolute love, 100%.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, and then we've got even more. We're running long here, so we'll briefly go over the rest until we get to quarterbacks and tight ends. We'll do Lockett, Hilton, and Cooks. The reason I'm down on all them, well, I'm even more down on Hilton and Cooks than Lockett. Hilton and Cooks are just they're very injury prone. And then yeah, Lockett's just very inconsistent. They're all inconsistent. I don't like any of them. Darius Slayton though is somebody I feel like could really blow up, and because Slayton, like, I don't think he'll be like the most. He's not gonna be like a PPR gem that's catching a lot each week, but he's an explosive wideout. So I feel like he's somebody you could get a little later, and because he'll produce just as good or better than these guys, and you could get him 2-3 rounds later. That's why I really like him. I mean, I like explosive receivers, which all these are.
Right.
But to me, they're too risky to take that gamble. You could also get like a Mecole Hardman late, and a Justin Jefferson. I know he's been struggling to pick up the offense, but once he does, he should do really well, especially if Thielen would get hurt again. And then Debo, I just the foot, y'all, the foot I don't think is gonna be 100%, so I'm staying away. John Brown's due for regression with Diggs there. Paris Campbell, Michael Pittman, an interesting duo. I prefer Campbell, though, because I feel like he'll see those slot looks from Phillip Rivers where Pittman, excuse me. If something happens to T.Y., his stock jumps. But if T.Y.'s on the
Pittman's
field.
been looking good. He's been
Yeah,
looking good
if something
lately.
happens to T.Y., he could do well. But the reason I have him here is because a lot of times he'll get overdrafted a lot of times. And so obviously pump the brakes on him, but I think Paris Campbell is going to be the better option. Also, Bryan Edwards is somebody, y'all keep an eye on this guy. Bryan Edwards late. It's somebody that could do really well as Rager. I know Rager just picked up the injury, so Rager to me is really only an option in leagues which you have an IR spot because he's probably going to miss the first few weeks. And then Sammy Watkins, y'all know the drill. Stay away. That dude is, if you think Amari Cooper's inconsistent, just look at Watkins. But Bryan Edwards, though, with Tyrell Williams gone now due to the injury, I think Edwards could have a really big rookie year.
Yeah. I pretty much like everything that you said so far. I will say about Michael Pittman, watch out for him because it's looking early on right now that he is the red zone threat.
Oh, yeah, that could be something.
And just keep an eye on it because Phil Rivers likes to chuck that ball up in the red zone. He's giving him jump ball opportunities right now in camp. So watch out for it because Michael Pittman could pop. I agree with you that Paris Campbell is going to get slot looks. He's going to get a lot of points as well. But just keep Michael Pittman on your radar because you can get him super late. And again, he's a guy that could get about 7-8 touchdowns this year, which is really good for a rookie. So just keep down your list. One more guy that I would add that I really love is Marquis Brown.
Hollywood.
Yes, sir. I have him because he's being drafted in around the 6th, maybe 7th round. And he's a guy that could absolutely be a high-end wide receiver too this year. He played hurt last year, and he was still really good. He was a little inconsistent, but I chalked that up to the injury. We do know he has a connection with Lamar Jackson, even though it's a very unconventional type of connection because it's Lamar Jackson. He's a very unconventional type of quarterback. It's still a connection nonetheless. And we know that Marquise Brown's going to see a lot of one-on-one coverage because they have to stack the box for that running game that they have, whether it be JK, whether it be Mark Ingram, or whether it be just trying to focus on stopping Lamar. We know that he's going to get a lot of one-on-one battles, and he's one of the fastest guys in the league, so he's going to win those battles a good bit of times. So keep him on your radar. I'm absolutely fine with drafting where he's being drafted as a wide receiver too, and I think he's going to blow up for a lot of people this year.
Yes, indeed. He very well could. I'm just a little concerned about just that offense and then his injury history from last year. But yeah, if healthy, though, he could definitely do well. He's somebody that's grown on me. I had him in the mid-30s. I was just like, he's just a dart thrower.
I would have him above Tyler Lockett. And and T.Y.
Yeah, he's somebody a lot of times you can get him at a better value than those guys. So yeah, let's get to quarterbacks. We won't be able to spend too much time on quarterbacks and tight ends. So let's address them though before we sign off here. To me, if you're gonna take a quarterback early, it's like somewhat early. Kyler Murray's the move. I'm not saying avoid Lamar and Mahomes. The one Lamar though, I feel like he's due for a big time regression this year in passing touchdowns and also some in rushing. I don't think he's gonna rush for 1,200 plus yards again, or throw the 36 touchdowns. With both of those numbers coming down, it wouldn't shock me at all if Kyler Murray outproduces Lamar Jackson this year. That's actually one of my hot takes. I have Kyler outdoing Lamar, and the reason being is Kyler's on the rise. Kyler's yet to reach that pinnacle ceiling that I feel like he's due to get. And what Lamar was last year was his second year. This year it's Kyler's second year. Not to say to totally diss Lamar. I mean, if Lamar for some reason would slip to the Kyler range in like the fifth, sixth round, of course, take him. I mean, I'd probably even take him like in the fourth round because then you could use him as a trade piece. Because, I mean, he was basically the fantasy MVP last year other than Christian McCaffrey. But, I mean, overall, though, where you can get Kyler Murray, it's usually around the sixth round. Lamar, the second or third round. Give me that Kyler Murray sixth round value all day long over the Lamar early.
Yeah, just like I said before, remember that the reason why you won your leagues with Lamar is because most likely you got him off a free agent last year. It ain't because you drafted him in the second round.
Yep.
So if you draft him in the second round, I mean, look, if he does exactly what he did last year, okay, it can be justified. Chances are he probably won't. Like you said, there's probably going to be some regression. You have to worry about injury, just with the amount of times that he runs the ball, even though he is a smart runner. Um, so yeah, I'm staying away from that. I'm not drafting him as early as he's going. If he was being drafted in the same area as Kyler, sure, I would draft him. But he's not. He's going way early, and I'm just not a big fan of that. I don't even really draft Kyler Murray where he's being drafted. I'm just not a fan of drafting quarterbacks that early. I do like Kyler. I think Kyler throws a really beautiful deep ball. I think he's basically Russell Wilson light, and he's a very good quarterback. I think he's going to continue to be a good quarterback. I'm not a fan of drafting a quarterback in those first 6 rounds, 6 or 7 rounds. So I kind of stay away from that.
I got you. Yeah, if you decide to wait on it, which a lot of times I do, a couple guys you could get would be Drew Brees and Josh Allen. Like, I feel like this about Drew Brees. Like, this is most likely his last season, so he's going to want to go out with a bang. And so, yeah, I'm pretty high on him. It's Drew Brees, y'all. I don't really have to make much of a case there. Yeah. And then Josh Allen, I just feel like he's being disrespected. I wasn't a big Allen fan because I feel like he's due for some touchdown regression as far as his rushing, but he's become a good value in drafts. A lot of times now he'll go as like around here. A lot of times because I put Brady in red. Not that I think Brady's gonna stink it up. I think he's gonna have a good resurgence in Tampa Bay, but it's about value. And the fact is, Josh Allen right now is a way better value than Tom Brady. Tom Brady lately in drafts I've done recently goes in like around the 7th, 8th round if you're lucky. Josh Allen will fall to the 9th or 10th. Give me the Josh Allen value in the 9th or 10th any day over a 43-year-old Tom Brady in the 7th or 8th who has no rushing upside. I mean, it's one thing. I mean, Brees doesn't either. But Brees was still playing at a really high level last year. Brady, even with some bounce back, I mean, Brady was not playing very well last year. Brady was wasn't even really close to being a QB1. He was like a mid-range QB2.
Yeah.
I think he'll get back to being a QB1, but I'm not paying the price. I'm going with Allen cheaper any day.
Yeah, I think if you can get Brady a little bit later, I think you should pull the trigger on him because he's definitely going to have a resurgence this year. Basically because his wide receiving core, it's stupid. It's the best he's ever had now. And you can't, you have to think that Tom Brady's going to be able to do something with that wide receiver core, right? He's going to be able to get you a lot of points, a lot of touchdowns. So yeah, if he's being drafted in the 7th, 8th round, sure, yeah, pass on it. But like you said, if he is dropping to 10th round, yeah, I don't think you should be too scared to pull the trigger on him. I like Josh Allen also. I don't know why he's been drafting. I mean, he's been dropping
in
drafts.
A lot.
I'm not quite sure why, but fine by me. I'll gladly take him in the 11th, 12th round. Another guy I actually love is Matthew Stafford. I see you kind of have him in the middle. The reason why I love him so much is because you can get him even later than those guys. And he's a guy that, remember last year, he was an MVP candidate before he went down.
I had to move him up some. I moved him up above like Rodgers and Dimes type thing.
He is like Carson Wentz where you have to worry about injury. I get that. If you can back up Matt Stafford or Carson Wentz with a Danny Dimes, I'm perfectly fine with drafting either one of those guys with as late as they're being drafted because you know that they can give you league-winning upside if they can stay on the field.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and then this is my case. I have Danny Dimes, Gardner Minshew, and Joe Burrow all as guys I'm all in with. The reason being, look, they're all on the rise. Like they're all young quarterbacks, so you're not gonna have to overpay for them. And they haven't hit their peak. They're young quarterbacks that haven't hit their peak. They can run. They all have mobility. And they all play on teams with bad defenses. And that's such a key for me for fantasy. I'm not saying any of those guys are going to win many games in real life. But I tell you this, for fantasy, they can win you some games because they're going to be playing from behind. And they're going to be running for their lives. Dimes, Minshew, Burrow. Telling y'all, if as a QB2, that's the move. Because if you're in a pinch or if you have a bye week or something where you're QB1 enrolling, just go with one of them. I mean, they're gonna. Odds are one of them will have a really juicy matchup and you can plug them in. And even if they don't, they'll probably be having to play catch up and putting up numbers. I feel like all these guys have potential QB1 upside. I wouldn't draft them there though because they're all obviously young and unproven, but they're definitely guys that I wouldn't be scared to take them. I'd rather go with one of them rather than just go with a veteran. Like, let's scroll down here: Jimmy Garoppolo, Big Ben, Kirk Cousins, Phillip Rivers. I'd rather go young. I'd rather go young.
Yeah, I agree. I'll even add Drew Lock to that list.
Yeah, he could do something. I don't think he has quite as much upside, and he's actually on a team with a good defense. Yeah, they won't have as much garbage time. And then the two I'm staying away from are Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton. No ESPN darlings, but I'm staying far away. Cam Newton is in. I mean, they're both in capped offenses. Rodgers with Matt LaFleur, they're going to be conservative, and we know how Bill Belichick runs the show. So yeah, neither one of those guys I feel like are going to be very fruitful for fantasy.
Yeah, I think for me with Drew, I agree with you. He's got the best defense out of the four, but I do think he has the best weapons also out of the four, the best receiving core as a whole. So I think that alone gives him enough value to put him in that good backup quarterback list for you to have. So, yep.
Indeed. All right, and then tight ends, we'll cap it off. We're going to make this quick. We'll do tight ends real quick because that's a position I generally wait on. I'm not saying to totally avoid the big four, but I'm not recommending them because they usually get rather a little bit too high. And Tyler Higbee is somebody I like. If you wait till like the 8th or 9th round and he's there, go ahead and grab him. I feel a little better about him than the rest of these guys. I feel like he's just got a higher ceiling there, and he's a pretty stable floor because the Rams seem to have entrenched him into their offense, as evidenced by his ridiculous stretch run last year. And Mike Gesicki and Jonnu Smith, if you decide to wait on the position, are two guys that were getting an expanded role in the offense. And from what it looks like, neither team signed many. I don't think the Titans or Dolphins signed any receivers this offseason. Yeah, I mean, that's to me a sign that they must believe in their tight ends to catch passes because somebody's got to catch balls for them. I mean, neither offense is that great, but I feel like a lot of times that's when tight ends can thrive, and so I feel good about these two as players that could break out. And then ones I'm staying away from: Darren Waller, I feel like is due for regression. Hunter Henry. I'm not really hating Henry, but I just feel like a lot of times he'll get drafted over like guys like Higbee and stuff, and I don't really see the need to pay a premium price for him when you can get a Gesicki or Hurst later. And then Gronk, I mean, I'm telling y'all, Gronk and Cam Newton are the biggest scams in fantasy football. I feel like another ESPN darling. Gronk is somebody I don't want any part of. He took a year off. He's not the same player. He's going to just be more of a role player this year. They got O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate still in the tight end room there. So I never like tight ends by committee, especially a 3 tight end committee. So yeah, hard no to me on Gronk.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty fine with this list. For me, the reason why I'll just talk about Darren Waller for a second. The reason why I don't like Darren Waller this year, it really doesn't even have much to do with Darren Waller. I think that Marcus Mariota is going to take over in that offense for whatever godly reason. They're going to make him the starter at some point.
He's paranoid about Mariota.
And I am. And when they do, I think Waller just goes straight down the toilet. And I hate to say it because I think Darren Waller's really good. I think he's really talented. If they kept Derek Carr all year, I'd be perfectly fine with drafting him where he's being drafted. But they want Marcus Mariota to take over, and he's going to do nothing but suck the air out of Darren Waller forever. So I want nothing to do with that. I'm fine with everybody else. I would even add maybe Noah Fant and Jared Cook to my love list just because you can get both of them really late. Like I said earlier, we know Jared Cook has a really good connection with Drew Brees. I believe that's going to continue this year. He's going to be pretty consistent. Noah Fant, he might not be as consistent, but he's going to give you some big weeks. He's going to give you some weeks where he scores 2 or 3 touchdowns because he's that explosive. He's probably, besides a healthy Evan Ingram, he's probably the most explosive tight end in the league. He's super
Yeah,
young.
I just
he's
worry
super
about
quick.
consistency. with
Right,
him,
right.
yeah.
He's going to be inconsistent. But if you're waiting, you can get him in one of the last few rounds. If you're waiting that late and you've already got players that you love everywhere across your team, fine, just pick him
Yeah,
up.
yeah,
He'll help
definitely
you
good
win some
tight end
weeks.
too. It could be a tight end one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we went over. I mean, you can maybe get some of these late, but they're all dart throws. But overall, yeah, that's about it. I mean, that's the landscape of the draft board this year. I got defenses and kickers, but y'all know the drill. Wait on this stuff. Wait till rounds 15 and 16.
Just make sure you get gay.
He got released, so don't do that. Do not draft.
Please don't draft him.
No. So, all right, y'all. Well, that's going to cap it off here for this Guru Nation podcast. Really appreciate everyone that tuned in. And so we'll sign off there. Wish y'all the best of luck on draft day, and we'll have more episodes coming for during the season. So y'all stay tuned for that.